Yes. Yes. Thank you, Wesley. I can't help but sing along when you play. That's usually what I'm doing during this time. All right. Good morning to people on the call. Good morning to people everywhere. People on social media. What's up? It's Sunday, October 25th. Almost the end of October. All right. So I'll start us off with a quote. Great innovations never come from above. They come invariably from below. Just as trees never grow from the sky downward, but upward from the earth. I think that's a beautiful quote, especially Triumph Life Center. Our symbol is like a tree. Nice. Today's theme is healing arts and activism, and the acronym PACTS: personal, artistic, clinical, theoretical, spirituality, and socioeconomic. This theme was kind of based off of an assignment that I was given for class, and we just kind of spun it into this. So I have some awesome things to share with everyone today. And we'll see how it goes. Again, this is like contributing to our theme about reimagining community. What kind of world do you want to live in? And what would it take to create that world? Very intense, vague questions, but a topic that we've been discussing for the past few weeks. Our outline, as usual. And a scripture reading to share. Universal mind has taught us what is good. What is required of us is this: to do what is just, seek truth, and show constant love. And that's from the New Bible for Our Time. As usual, I'm going to start us off with a meditation and my singing bowl. So get yourself comfortable, relax. However you happen to be sitting, you can adjust your position if you want to. I'm sitting on the floor with my legs crossed. That's most comfortable for me. But if you're sitting on a chair, you can put your feet flat on the floor. Notice how it feels to have the chair holding up your weight against gravity. If you're in a bed, notice how comfy that feels. You're welcome to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And I'm going to strike the bowl. And when I do that, just take a deep breath. Breathe in and breathe out. I want to focus this meditation on water. I'm thinking about all the sources of water that are in this beautiful world, that are near to us and far to us, from us. You can imagine raindrops falling. You can imagine those raindrops building into puddles, getting bigger and bigger on the ground, and jumping and splashing your feet into the puddle, and how exciting that feels. You can imagine ripples in a pond when you drop a small stone in, all the way to big crashing of waves in the sea. And they're both similar motions, but they're very different in terms of extremity. How water falls in a waterfall, all the way from the top and crashes straight down to the bottom. Water that's in the air as mist or fog. Water that's in the glass that we drink, and how lucky we are to have that clean water to drink. Water in the form of tears that fall down your face. In joy, in sorrow, in grief, in excitement, in confusion. Water is everywhere, and water is everything. I come from water. I am water, and I'm grateful for my access to water. I like to imagine water also as a river, and kind of like your mind has all these thoughts, and you can just imagine the thoughts flowing down the river. You notice them, they come past you, and the water takes it away. And that helps me to remember to not attach so much to everything and to just let things go. Water is everything. I come from the water. I am water, and I'm grateful for my access to clean water. And you can take some deep breaths. You can imagine your body floating in water and how nice that would feel right now. Oof. I'm gonna strike the singing bowl again, and you're welcome to take some deep breaths. As we end this meditation, place your attention again on your body and your breath. Listen to what your body's saying. Did anything change from when we first started? And just notice that, acknowledge it, and let it be. That's all. Together, we've strengthened ourselves in an expression of unity, love, and purpose to better relate to ourselves, to others, and the environment. Ashe. Thank you.
Ashe. Good morning, all hail. Greetings. Brenda, if you take the slide down for me, just stop the slide. Yeah,
Sure.
thanks. How's everyone doing this morning? Welcome. Thank you for that meditation, Brenda, and just centering us in that idea of water. Uh, and water symbolizes so many different things: spirit, energy, life. So thank you for that. So welcome to our Sunday gathering. I am Sandra Addison Brito, and I will be your host for this Sunday's gathering. A little unusual. We usually Brenda is usually the host, but today we're doing something a little different. Brenda is actually our guest presenter on today. So we're excited about this. She will be sharing some of her social activism artwork and telling us a little bit more about her graduate program and the work that she's doing as an educator, as a therapist, as a healing art therapist. So we're excited about just learning more about that. So with me in the Zoom room, I see Nadia. Good morning, Nadia. I see Travis. I did see Travis. Hi, Travis. Good morning. Uh, Wes. Hi, Wes. Thanks for that awesome opening music as always. And there are a few more folks. Thank you all for just being in the Zoom room with us, to our team for being here. Bishop is with us. Want to say wave and say hello to everyone.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. And to those who may be with us via Facebook, we welcome you to our Sunday gathering. So on behalf of our Triumph team, I welcome each of you that have joined us in the Zoom room and live on Facebook. And we're excited about what we're going to be doing and sharing on today. So first, this past week, we held a virtual celebration in remembrance of our founder, Elias Dempsey Smith. And what an awesome time we had this week, for those of you that were with us. And we had an awesome, phenomenal guest presenters on our panel, and Brenda happened to be one of them. And we're going to share, maybe reflect on some of that today as we go through her work and talk more about this idea of reimagining community and the different ways that we can do that. So we ask that you stay centered in this space. Keep in mind, those questions that have been our questions for this month. What kind of world would you like to live in? What kind of community would you like to live in? And what would it take to create that world? We will explore this with our special guest, Ms. Brenda, on today through healing, activism, and through the arts. So sit back, relax, have your warm beverage. It was kind of cold this morning where I'm at. I don't know about everybody else. I had to push the heat up a little bit. So get warm, get comfy. Share the feed if you're on social media on your social media page. Tell folks that we're on. And as always, the Christ in me celebrates the Christ in you. Together, we'll make our world brand new. So again, welcome to everyone. I think we're next going to go to our prayer time. What's next? Let me just see. I got to get used to this because Brenda does this. Yeah.
Opening prayer.
Our opening prayer.
And then I'll pass to Nadia.
Thank you.
Cool. Unity of all. Hanto Yo. Hanto Yo means clear the way. Let us pray. God of surprises, you call us. from the narrowness of our traditions to new ways of being church, from the captivities of our culture to creative witness for justice, from the smallness of our horizons to the bigness of your vision. Clear the way in us, your people, that we might call others to freedom and renewed faith. Clear the way in us, your people, that we might call others to wholeness and integrity. Great Spirit, you call us from fear to faithfulness, from clutter to clarity, from a desire to control to deeper trust, from the refusal to love to a readiness to risk. Clear the way in us, your people, that we might all know the beauty and power and danger of the gospel. Ashe.
Introduction to Triumph Life Center. Triumph Life Center opened on October 19, 2019 under the umbrella of Triumph the Church of the New Age International, TCNA, which was founded in 1904. We seek to further the work of TCNA founder Bishop Elias Dempsey Smith, 1865 to 1920, who had a vision of a new world system that he fully believed was attainable through the shared practice of spiritual principles that would lead to our collective awakening or higher expression of the divine. Triumph Life Center's vision is of an interdependent community formed from the tapestry of our individual and collective experiences of the divine that fosters both an embodied spirituality and epistemology as pathways to establishing a new world where all may share in the fullness of life. Triumph Life Center's mission is to promote the creation of new cultural practices and social and economic systems that are egalitarian, affirms our shared humanity, and holds sacred the earth and all life forms. To create a safe and sacred space where marginalized individuals and communities who may not have equal access to opportunities can connect up to expand both their spiritual and intellectual life and gain access to opportunities for personal growth through shared resources and support for developing spiritual gifts and intellectual pursuits. 3. To honor the Sabbath as a time for individual and collective spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental well being through shared music, spoken word, sacred readings, and a communal meal. Triumph Life Center's goal is to be a hub for conversations envisioning a new world order, creative arts expressions, emerging social entrepreneurships, promoting community owned sustainable food systems for access to healthy living, expanding reverence and care for the earth and all life forms, forming alliances and building bridges across community barriers that mutually affirm our shared humanity. And 7, people of all faiths, cultures, ethnicities, races, genders, orientations, abilities, personal challenges, i.e., history of incarceration, mental health issues, addictions, physical health, citizenship, housing, employment, relationship status, age, etc., to be in community with each other on one accord.
Okay, thank you. I'll read our 7 life affirming principles. So Triumph 7 life affirming principles, basis of community. We affirm that life is in the breath and breath is life. Therefore, we join together to promote our shared humanity and inseparable breath. 2, we affirm that we are born whole, complete, as perfect manifestations of the universal mind, Christ. 3, we affirm our physical bodies differ and as such may present different challenges, limitations, or privileges that everyone may not share in. Therefore, we join together to share our strengths and support one another where there may be weaknesses so that we all may enjoy the fullness of life. We affirm that our agreement is to pursue peace, walk in truth, uphold justice, tempered with mercy. 5, we affirm that we are like branches on a tree. Although we may grow in different directions, we share a common root, and as such, we pledge to respect each other's path even as it may differ from one's own. We agree to walk in agreement that it is all right to disagree, and we protect and safeguard this right in so much as the state of disagreement upholds an affirmation of life. We affirm that community, number six, we affirm that community building is the process of communal shared principles, shared resources, as well as equitable access to resources. Therefore, we commit to being agents of an open culture that welcomes everyone to participate in the life of the community, with the provision that we also hold each other accountable for acts that do not support the life affirming principles of our awareness, while equally looking for and enacting a commitment to forgive and restore in the spirit of humility and love. And number seven, we affirm the earth and all that dwell therein are manifestations held within the universal mind, Christ, and humanity's role is to be faithful stewards of this earth by demonstrating respect and dignity for all beings. The sacredness of Mother Earth and our commitment to caring for her as we care for ourselves. Ashe and amen. So now we're going to segue into our sacred readings, and Wes will lead us out with a musical interlude, followed by the sacred readings.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So
Good morning.
this week I'll be playing this tune called "Waters of March." I'm gonna be, mentioning that melody. In Brazil, March it's when we have the autumn. That's the different from here. So over here, when we have spring, over there is autumn. It's the opposite. So they say it's the waters of March, which means it's the waters that comes from the autumns, that the period that we are living right now. So, and that is this beautiful phrase that Jobim wrote. Tom Jobim is the composer of that song, and he wrote the lyrics in both languages, in Portuguese and also in English. In this part, he says, "The promise of spring and the riverbanks talks of the waters of March is the promise of life, is the joy in your heart." And that's the melody.
Epic. This is how I describe your comeback. This is how I describe your glow. You were never gonna lose. You were just on a different track. Age of Aquarius, and you're entering your prime. I had to heal you because I knew your potential. You already put the work in. You don't have to show me your credentials. Destiny. It was written. It was given. It was yours before you were born. God has a plan, and you are a factor. You have no master. When the sun stares at you, it sees a star. No luck or chance. You're rare. Believe me, he cares. The warrior. You are brave. Yes, you are. You are powerful. Yes, you are. You are divine. Yes, you are. Don't let no one tell you otherwise. Don't let no one take your glow. I mean no one. You were not given life to live in your lowest self. I want you to fight, but more importantly, I want you to love. become beautiful art. Welcome home. This is the place your scar will become testimony. Your rebirth will be a ceremony. Welcome home. This is where you belong. Welcome to Triumph Church.
São as águas de março fechando o verão. É a promessa de vida no seu coração.
Woo!
That was cool.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I like that. And so in Brazil, the seasons are different from here.
Yeah, it's exactly the opposite. So right now over there is getting hotter.
Wow. So it's just they're going into the summer.
Yeah, so it's exactly, yeah, in South America, so it's exactly like the opposite. So whatever happens here is the opposite in there.
So if we want to visit Brazil, it would be a good time to go. I mean, after the pandemic, around this time of the year for their warm season to get away from our cold season.
That's why the carnival it's in around like in March, you know.
Okay. All right. So
So
thanks for that. Thanks for the music and thanks for that info for us.
awesome.
All right, so we're going to move into our presentation for today, our theme on healing arts and activism. And we're excited about just learning more about what Brenda has been up to and really looking into and hearing more about her passion in this field. We're going to do this in two parts. We have some of Brenda's artwork that she's going to, after we introduce her, she's going to share some of her artwork. Each piece has a name and she's going to talk about what the piece represents. And then after the artwork, we're going to have a conversation, and actually the staff, the team, we're going to interview Brenda. We have some questions for her about this essay that she recently wrote that was very interesting and intriguing. So Nadia, if you come on and just give us an intro for Brenda, and then we'll let her come on and share her art.
So official.
Brenda Echeverry is a multidisciplinary artist and educator who has worked in public schools across New York City facilitating creative arts programming. She is passionate about working with nonprofit organizations that provide services to under-resourced communities. Brenda has been working with Triumph Life Center and Spiritual Connections Cafe since October 2019, where she participates as a facilitator and an administrative assistant. She engages with the Triumph Life community in person and online by hosting events and discussions with guest speakers. She aims to keep learning and informing others about social justice and mental and spiritual health. In the past, Brenda has tutored and mentored elementary age students and advocated for families in the child welfare system as a social worker. Brenda has a background in musical performance, visual art, dance, and theater. She enjoys incorporating these art forms into her professional work and uses them to practice a personal form of healing. She is in her graduate studies in expressive arts therapy at Wesley University that started in fall of 2020. Please welcome Brenda Echeverry.
Hey, thanks.
Welcome. Okay.
I appreciate it so much. Cool. It's
Do
nice
you
to
want me
have.
do you want to share the slide, or you want me to share it? Whichever works best for you.
I can do it. I have it. It's ready to go.
Okay,
I
go
suppose
ahead.
I'll just
Go
go through
for
it.
it.
Thank you. So I'm going to start out by sharing some of my artwork. Some of it is recent, some of it is not. And I'll kind of just explain my thoughts behind it as I go. A lot of the work that I do, I've noticed, is self-portraits. And a lot of my self-portraits don't exactly look like a portrait. But I'm coming to realize that a lot of the visual art that I make is a representation of what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, maybe a part Brenda of the past or Brenda of the current moment or Brenda that I hope to be in the future. So it's kind of like a mix of all of that. So I still consider most of my work to be self-portraits at this point. I'm starting with this one because it kind of makes sense with the theme. It's just a very basic drawing. I like to incorporate a lot of, I think I mentioned this in a lot of our discussions too, natural elements, especially recently, this idea of a plant that's growing from the ground. I think about this image of planting a seed and that seed pushing up through the soil and eventually reaching the surface, the air, and growing up and up towards the sun, and how the plant just grows really without asking why. It just grows, it just is. And I really love thinking that way about me and my evolution in my life. I also like to plant seeds and watch them grow. So it's really exciting to imagine myself as that and to also be doing that here at home. I created this piece after I watched like a webinar a few weeks ago where they were really talking about art and social justice and how you can use your art as a form of social justice. So each leaf has the description of what some of the speakers were saying that they believe art is. This idea of art as revolution. It's not only revolution, but it's also evolution. Art as a form of healing, which is something I do for myself consistently, probably since I was very young. I can't help it. I tend to go towards music, dance, and creation to honestly make myself feel better, to feel comfort when I am really stressed out and really upset, or when I feel really good and I just have great ideas and I'm like, okay, cool, let me create something with it. The quote at the bottom is, your activism sustainable. I'm thinking about that too in terms of my artwork. Is what I'm doing actually, will it last? Will it make sense for the future? Is it going to affect anyone? How am I going to use my artwork to better myself and the people around me? I think that every form of artwork is a political statement. Recently, I've been hearing this concept that just by being, your sense of being is political because you are affected by your culture and everything that's going on around you in terms of your economic status, your social status, your education. And all of that is influenced by politics. Everything we do is political. So that's why I included that as well. I'm going to go through some of my more obvious, I suppose, self-portraits. I like to work with collage. So all of the pieces I included in this discussion today are collages for the most part. I think I really appreciate collage because first, I don't see myself as the greatest illustrator or drawer. So it's helpful to be able to go through images or go through magazines, newspapers, books, and cut out things that are already there that really stand out to me, and then figure out how to put them on a page. And just that, creating that composition in itself, cutting and pasting, is such a good feeling for me. And honestly, people of any age can do it if they're able to. Of course, you could also like rip paper and that affects the texture. I added, just like in this one in particular, I added crayon, and it's made of like cardboard, like things like that. I really like to use environmentally friendly materials, or materials that I happen to have just laying around, in the sense that I'm reusing them for something creative. This was a piece that came, I think I was participating in a workshop actually, and they prompted us to create a self-portrait. So I was, again, the theme of water. I looked at this and I was like, cool, let me do some meditating with water also. And they prompted us to write a little poem, a little piece that kind of is a response to the artwork. Something that I'm learning in the program that I'm doing, it's called expressive arts therapy. So it's not just art therapy. It's not just music therapy. It's not just drama therapy. It's a combination of them all. By combining multiple art forms, there's this theory that you can essentially be crystallizing, you can be intensifying your emotions and your thoughts, or what's really happening deep within you. By moving from art form to art form, or by combining them, it can intensify essentially your creative experience, your healing experience. So that's something I'm kind of experimenting with and playing around with, and seeing if that is really true for me, and how it affects the people around me too when I lead them through art. This piece, I would again kind of describe it as a self-portrait. This piece I created when I was like going through the end of a relationship, and it really, really hurt. And in some ways it still really, really hurts. But this was like literally me kind of tying together my broken heart. On the inside of the heart are words that I was feeling in the moment, maybe more words that were leaning towards more negative emotions. And on the outside, especially in the middle by the strings, are words that I was like, okay, how I want to feel better, essentially, as in, get ready to be free. Don't mess with me. Relief, being open, facing the future, and just essentially stay out of my way. So this was really, really helpful to create. I think maybe it took me like an hour and a half. And I used a lot of text. I cut out a lot of text to incorporate into this, because quite honestly, I was struggling to find words to describe my feelings. So there's kind of also that, the dichotomy, I suppose, of the negative and the positive emotions all in one image. And again, just reusing materials that I had around my home, and being as resourceful as possible. Something else I want to mention is that I have this very strong belief that you do not need to go out and purchase all these amazing high quality supplies to create beautiful art. It's expensive, honestly. And it's like, in a way, I suppose that is my form of resisting capitalism a bit, because I'm trying to use what I have around me, or things that I find on the street, or newspapers or magazines that people leave out for garbage. I just kind of try to recreate and make beauty out of trash, I suppose, quote unquote trash. All right, this is another type of collage. It's a very simplistic piece, I would say. Um, it's a representation of my mixed identity as a white Jewish American, a white Jewish American and a white Colombian American. My mom is Jewish. She grew up in the Bronx. She is an educator. She speaks English and Spanish. She's very calm and soft spoken and relaxed. And then, so that's the left side with the purple, calm, cool, wavy, right? And then on the right side is my father, a representation of my father. He's from Colombia. He's very loud and outspoken and very friendly and outgoing, and musical and artistic, and not as organized, I suppose, as or detailed as my mother. So I'm here in the middle again with like these little leaves of like me. I'm kind of struggling in terms of figuring out my identity and what that really means, and what, having two very contrasting cultures, both raised, both people raising me, and that is like really confusing. I can't even lie. And I really love it. And I'm so grateful for that experience, because in a way I get to have like a little part of both heritage, both families. But at the same time, I'm also questioning like, okay, I don't fully fit into either culture. And my family itself is quite isolated in the sense that it's my parents, my sister, and I. We have good relationships, I suppose, with extended family, but we're definitely not as close with them. So there's also that sense of isolation. So I kind of created myself in this little like tunnel, but with the leaves and the plants kind of as like hope that there is something growing, something's gonna come from it. And this was actually created out of a prompt for my assignment for school, where they just were asking us to consider a part of our identity specifically like an intersectionality that we might have in our identity. I'm talking a lot. Thank you everyone for listening. This is another piece. I call it La Fuerza. It was kind of random. I wasn't sure where I was going with it when I was creating it, but when it came out, it was very much influenced by my Hispanic and Latin heritage, in the sense that I included cafe and like empanadas. At least that's how I would describe them as. And music. I even put little coffee beans all around. I was thinking in terms of cutting out shapes. I was trying to focus on vertical shapes and adding all these bright colors into it. And the eyes are there also. Kind of like ancestors watching us is how I would describe it. And also bringing in television and media and representation in that sense. And the building that you see in the background. I guess acknowledging that a lot of people in Hispanic community are living in low income areas, in housing like that. Another form of self-portrait that looks a lot more like a portrait. This was actually kind of inspired after a lot of our conversations that we've had here at Triumph in terms of spirituality, in terms of the idea of the Christ in me sees the Christ in you. That's why I wrote, or I kind of collaged at the top, our souls reflect, in the sense that we are kind of like a mirror for each other. I always think, or I hear about like the things that you dislike in other people is really what you dislike within yourself, that kind of thing. And how you see people struggling, or at least I see people struggling, and I can really empathize with that. And that the feeling resonates so intensely that it's like it's a mirror. So I wanted to include that shattered mirror. And honestly, I broke that mirror out of anger. And I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this? All these broken pieces. I remember cleaning it up and being like, okay. So I saved some of them, and I added them into a creative piece. So it didn't really go to waste. And it's also kind of nice how that intense emotion was able to be transferred into an art piece like this, into a much more meaningful, positive message, I think. This one, I call it Reach. At first, I was actually trying to kind of create like a silhouette of like a cactus or something with a sunset, like, because based off of an image I saw in a magazine. But I was also thinking, okay, it kind of looks like me, my body laying down, reaching up, because that's another thing. I'm always reaching up, like the leaf, the seed, pushing through the soil and reaching up towards something bigger and better and greater. Also, this technique of cutting up or ripping up little pieces of colorful paper and then creating them into a larger image, or organizing them into a larger image, is really fun. I learned that technique, I want to say in 7th grade, from my art teacher when I really got into doing collages. So I also like to do this. It is tedious and it takes time, and I get a lot of glue all over my hands, but like the end product is so interesting to look at. And again, it's eco-friendly. I'm trying to be resourceful and use what I have around. So I just put it on like a file folder, if you could tell at the bottom. I want to see if I can pull up this other one. Yes, this is the last one I will talk about. This one's called Time for Change. It's a similar method of creating collage. And I was thinking a lot about being environmentally friendly. Clean energy. I was thinking about the sun, and literally the sun is radiating down on us, and how and kind of how it combines with the air and the earth. And I put it on a plant as to take this picture too, because I'm thinking what are the ways, again, that I can be using the materials around me to create something beautiful, and to also share a message about what I care about. I left intentionally blank where it says, please recycle. I think that might have been like a pizza box or something like that. So I try to make work that is important to me, that expresses myself and my emotions, but is also important to share with other people in terms of causes and matters that I really think we should be discussing. So that was a
Wow.
lot.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
first let's just, unmute and just thank Brenda for sharing that. You can take this slide down now, Brenda, stop share for a few moments.
Okay.
Just thank you for awesome artwork. Before we get into our conversation, I want to just open it up if anyone would like to ask you about any of the pieces that you shared, a question or a comment about any of the art that you shared.
Hello.
Hello.
I just want to comment on the self-portrait on the piece between, well, the you between the two worlds of your parents, and how I think that that's really a kind of a parallel for anybody that's growing up or has grown up in two different worlds. It could be two different worlds, like the world of your parents and the world that you're growing up in that your parents don't understand, and then there's you trying to figure it out. So that was one of the pieces that stooped in my stood in my mind. And then, like, the plants, and it was that one just stood out for me, especially for myself growing up. For me, it was a reflection of growing up in a world that my parents didn't understand, and me not knowing that world. So I have this world that I'm supposed to be fitting in. They don't get it. And then this whole, skin color based thing, and not having a place, and like what culture is mine, and what does that mean? And having no way of really, that's a pretty complicated thing to try and deal with when you're 9, right?
Yes.
And how do you deal with that? So that just resonated with me. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Anyone else on the art?
I had a question for Brenda. The art was so amazing, so amazing. But I did have a question on the one, I don't remember the name, but you said it was done on a file folder. And
Yes.
I think you said that you took pieces of colored paper and you just ripped them. Can you explain the setup, the technique that you used? Because that one was just amazing. How did you do that again?
Thank you. So I go through magazines, and a lot of the advertisements are very bright, beautiful colors. So if there's a big solid chunk of color, I rip it out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to use it for this part of the, or I'll place it on this part of the canvas. I cut it, or not cut it, I rip it into really small pieces to have that effect of like, even more collage-y, if that makes sense. Almost like a mosaic kind of feeling, but it's with paper. And then I just glue it. Sometimes I use different shades of the color that I find throughout magazines, or if I pick up new ones along the way, I just incorporate that on top of it. Really, I just did like a basic outline, and then I just went for it. And then I realized I can also, if it really looks bad, I can either peel it off, or I could just glue a different color on top of it, and it still has the similar effect,
It's so interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Sure.
interesting.
It's really fun.
So that's a good segue into our just some more specific questions for you, Brenda, that myself and our team are going to just put to you. Brenda wrote an essay. Just tell us the name of the essay, or give us the background of the essay, because we're not going to read it, just sort of context that we can use questions from, please.
So this was for my theories class, Theories of Expressive Arts Therapy. Essentially, my professor was asking us to I kind of describe it as an artist therapist statement. We really are talking a lot about our identities as artists, our identities as clinicians, and putting those together and how that combines maybe some of the things that could be problematic with that, some of the things that are beautiful with that. So she gave us this prompt of PACTS, PACTSS, which was personal, artistic, clinical, theoretical, spiritual, and socioeconomic. So all of these parts of our identity and how they come together as our artist therapist mind, I suppose, or our goals and our intentions as well for the semester. So this was like a 3-page paper I submitted.
But it was so much packed into that 3-page paper. And so we just appreciate you sharing that with us. So we're going to ask you a few questions coming from that paper. I'm going to lead out.
Okay.
We're going to skip over for team for the questions that are listed numerically. I think I duplicated 2 and 4. So we're going to skip over 2. So I'll do question 1, then I'll hand it over to Nadia for question 3. So question 1 really picks up on, I think, your art and what James had asked about, but I'm going to read a quote from your paper and then just ask you to comment on it. So you write, I am a young, educated, white, Colombian American, cisgendered, and able-bodied woman. I was born and raised in New York, and I've always had access to food, shelter, and healthcare. I have both parents in my life, and I participate in extracurriculars. I have a computer and access to the internet, which I can use to work, keep in communication with the world, apply for professional opportunities, and entertain myself. Along with these parts of my identity, I have also experienced financial insecurity, sexism, and fat phobia. I do hold biases and judgments against others, which I have learned from living within and benefiting from the dominant culture in the United States. I must actively work against those biases because they influence my perception of the world and therefore my service to others. So my question is two-part. If you would share, what are some of the biases in you that you've uncovered around health, mental health, art, education, and how have you learned to navigate through those biases?
Okay. I'm also, I had sent this to James and he commented about this part in terms of the biases, in the sense that I don't think that anyone can really rid themselves of these biases. It's just that you have to acknowledge them and consider that they are going to influence how you perceive the world and how you perceive the people around you, especially the people that I'm going to be working with and serving. So how can I try to let that, push that a little bit to the side and not let that affect my, I suppose, my unconditional support and even love for the people that I'm working with. The first thing I think of in terms of biases is I thought a lot about ableism, the fact that I can walk around and I don't even question it. And I never really questioned it for a very long time. The fact that when I go on the subways in New York, a lot of the stations are not accessible to people with disabilities, to people with large luggage, to people with strollers. I think about how my family experienced a lot of physical health trauma throughout my entire life and how that has really affected their ability to get by in this world and their mobility too. So that's one thing I'm thinking about. I don't know if that's really a bias. That's a privilege that I didn't really consider for a long time. I'm thinking also about being a woman and a lot of the things that I've internalized of the expectations of my role as a woman in the family, that I will be the one that stays home and cares for the children. I will be the one that cooks and cleans. I have to be the one that, not have to be, but as a woman, I am soft spoken and gentle and delicate, but also, you know, really sexy and really like beautiful and like stunning, you know? So it's like, not that those things can't happen at once, but that there's this expectation of it that has always, the expectation of marriage too, and what kind of jobs I can have. So I think about that. And even when I see other women on in music videos or dressed a certain way, I have this initial like shock or thought of like, why are they doing that? Or that's dangerous, they might get hurt. In the sense of like, if you're exposing yourself like that, that your reputation might be ruined. So I'm thinking about that and how much I disagree with all of these things that I've internalized, I suppose, internalized misogyny and patriarchal views. But I try to recognize them and be like, okay, this is not, I don't agree with them, but I see that they come up. That's the first thing that comes up because it's so ingrained in me. I guess also othering people that don't look like me, people with darker skin color, people with that are not from this country that have a very strong, heavy accent, like my father, right? But I still think about people of like, okay, so they are different than me, or they need more support than me because this world is not meant for them to get by, or at least in America. So I have to somehow compensate for that, which I don't think that's a correct way to think either, because that's already assuming that people are innately unable to get by independently. So things like that come up for me, right? It's hard to admit it, I guess, but I have to.
Wow.
I have to acknowledge it.
Wow.
I don't remember if I answered the second part of it.
Oh, no, you did. You did. I think that was great. While we're going through the questions, if there's anyone else in the Zoom room that want to pose a follow-up question or ask her to expand more on your answer, you're welcome to do so. So I'm going to pass it over now to Nadia, who's going to ask question number.
Oh, this is James. I wanted to
Okay, go ahead,
comment
James, before we move on. Go ahead.
on the revealing of the biases. You know, I think this is a really important exercise for everybody, because like Brenda said, we all have biases, and there's no such thing as a non-biased person. It's just, can you account for your bias that you don't screw somebody else over? I mean, that's basically the bottom line. It's like, you know, you can be as biased as you want on the inside, but make sure whatever you're expressing is in this kind of, you know, helpful, common, you know, recognizing of the other person's boundaries. You know, I have conversations with, so where I work, my boss is, well, she's 29, and so it's a totally different kind of conversation than you'd have with, say, her dad, right? And you know, I just want to share like some of the perspectives I've gotten from her on the nature of gender roles. And she's basically of this idea that, you know, you do what you want to do and figure it out. And I think that came from the history of her grandmother, who was basically her grandmother had a kid out of wedlock in the early 60s. So that's like, you know, in Portugal, right? So this, and then it moved and ran her own business. And it was, I mean, and then had boyfriends running a homeless, basically kind of like a homeless shelter for men, like a rooming house for men. She was running it by herself, right? So this, you know, so she's kind of out there, right? Not too many women are doing that in the, you know, in the late 50s, early 60s, right? So from that, she got this kind of like, this kind of independence about her own, what she's going to do. And, you know, I'm coming to see that as a kind of a way of deciding what is the role I want to play in whatever given relationship that I'm in. And that since there isn't a cultural script for me to follow, I'm really responsible to build that script for myself. And if I want to get married, then I get married. If I don't want to get married, I don't get married. If I want to have kids, I want to, you know, and it's no longer really about that script and more about how am I learning how to construct this thing on my own. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. And that opens up so many other points that we could branch off into, but I'll hold my thoughts until see how the time runs, and maybe we can circle back and just expand a little bit more on James' comments. Nadia, I'm going to pass it over to you for the next questions for Brenda.
So the idea of science, which you shared, you are uncomfortable with, but you also shared that that your uncomfortableness may be due to your own insecurities. Please elaborate.
Okay, out of context, I know that question is strange, but essentially in my writing, I was talking about pretty much the power dynamic that exists between clinician and patient, therapist and client, person who is the expert versus person who's coming for help, right? And I was writing that I feel uncomfortable even just saying my clients, when I help the client, when the client comes into the office, because just in that language, it's already sort of like, I am the expert, I am the educated counselor over here who knows exactly what I'm doing. And this client is walking in needing all the support in the world. They don't know, they're stressed out, they're upset, they're going through a lot of pain and suffering, and that's why they're here, right? But I don't feel comfortable with that dynamic, or the way the language sets, I don't know, I guess perpetuates that dynamic. Because when I first was thinking about becoming a mental health counselor, I thought about how much benefit I would get out of it too. There's like this selfish motivation of thinking that, okay, when I get to hear these stories and these experiences and these traumas that the people are coming in and sharing with me, that will resonate with me, that will help me grow as a clinician and as an artist and as a person, as Brenda. And I think about how just because I went to school to do all this doesn't mean that I am knowledgeable of how to best support you meaning the person coming to get support from me. Essentially the person is the expert on their own lives. Everyone is the expert on their own life, and I can't ever tell them what is right and what they should do, what they have to do, what they need to do, what medication to take, how they should talk to their family, how they should do this and this and this, because that doesn't seem that helpful. So yes, in a way that's coming from my insecurity of, am I even really good enough to be able to do this, to help these people in the way that I want to? Like, and even just the word helping, how am I helping them? I feel like I'd rather be, I suppose, partnering with people or guiding people or setting up a space where they are comfortable to explore their own trauma and emotion and thought processes as I witness it, and as I'm there to comfort, as I'm there to be the role that they need. And I suppose if they need the role of someone taking the hand and, taking the lead and saying, okay, we're going to do this right now so that we can be back into a space of calmness, tranquility, enough that we can get some work done, then I will do that. But I don't even have another word for client. What am I?
A new language.
A person that I work with. I don't know. So that's where that came from, that thinking.
Brenda, every time I hear you speak, I'm at awe, because you have more of the attributes and qualities of such impactful clinician that you don't even know yet. They come out of you. Everything you've just described about your insecurities and uncertainties, keep your eyes and your awareness there. Because yes, there is a self-centered preservation journey of any good therapist. Because if you're not able to internalize and see that the treatment theories and protocols work on you, then how are you an expert?
Mm.
Thought and learning something doesn't make you an expert. Being able to connect those dots and actually experience it is what you can kind of use to path that journey when you're working with someone else. And again, my favorite line with every client is, I'm not the expert in your life. I'll never be the expert in your life. You are.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm the one that's helping you connect the puzzle pieces when you get lost. So everything you've said just keeps your heart open to be able to work and meet the different individuals. But sometimes it's necessary to always have a safe space, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary that it not be a comfortable space.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
This is James, and I you know, when I hear Bandely talking about clinician stuff, you know, I have to be quiet because she's professional. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to comment on something that you said, Brenda, that I disagree with, and it's in relation to, you know, in some ways what Bandely shared about not being an expert in their lives, and that's true. But I think if we're recognizing that there's some kind of objective reality that they want to interact with, and that objective reality has rules that doesn't care about you as a person, and that's the place by which I'm actually bringing help, right? That if there's this objective reality, then, and it follows rules, then I can show you, at least from a logical perspective, from an emotional perspective, from whatever things you're sharing me from your perspective, how they're lining up with that reality and why reality is beating you over the head, you know? And that's the expert help that the clinician is bringing, right? I mean, there's a reason why they're coming to you and not going to the mechanic, right? I mean, so, and yeah, so it's not about getting, you know, it's not about being lording over. It's about, listen, it's just like if a kid comes to you and says, hey, you know, I'm having trouble, you know, zipping up my coat. You don't go, oh my goodness, look at me, how impressive I am, and I'm helping them zip their, you're like, listen, okay, this is how it works. You zip up your coat and now you can go and do it by yourself, right? Mm-hmm. That's more of the kind of mindset I see as helpful for someone who's trying to be helpful, right? So it's not a matter of, you know, I can't help you, or it's not a matter of, you know, how can I help you? You're the expert in yourself. It's like, yeah, I don't have access to you yourself, but I do have access to this shared reality and can tell you some of the rules that it follows. So that's what I wanted to share as a kind of foundation to at least to lead towards of not having to think about that problem anymore.
Mm-hmm. In terms of like teaching skills or coping skills or ways that they can essentially get by that are relevant to their own lifestyle, I suppose. And again, that brings up this, I can just imagine sitting there with like a mirror, like, here, look at yourself, figure this out. But like okay, that was, yes.
Wow. Yeah, that was good conversation. Nadia, go on with your next question. I want to try to get through all of these if we can.
You write about the possibility of a universal soul or a collective consciousness influencing your creative process. Please elaborate.
Yes. So there are some theories I've been learning about. I don't know how they're just thoughts to consider, things to ponder. I think about collective consciousness. I think about universal soul, universal truth in a way. I was really inspired by the book by Eckhart Tolle. I think that we've had discussions about some of his writing before, but that really made me consider things in a different way. And I guess I really think in terms of imagery, in the sense that we all come from the same source. I think of like literally evolution and coming from the water as a living organism. And if we all have that sense of that light, that magic, that soul within us, that energy is constantly being recycled over lifetimes, over generations, and it's essentially feeding our sense of being. That's how I think of it. And it helps me have empathy for others. It helps me be like, okay, this person has a totally different worldview, totally different upbringing, but they still have that core. And you have to be careful in the sense of universalizing or generalizing things, because not everyone, period, no matter what you're considering, but still that general essence of like energy is there. And when I think about the creative process, I think about how I'm taking from that energy source and making something and expressing it, externalizing it, and how that feels so good for me. And hopefully I can help others so that it feels good as well, or that they can externalize something with that beautiful energy that we all have within us.
Wow.
I think that I could definitely go deeper.
I think you froze for a second, but yeah, that was great, Brenda. I'm going to pass it over to Travis, who has a couple of questions for you.
I have a question. You write about saviorism, right? Can you say more about this?
Can you say it again?
Oh, you write about saviorism. Can you
Yeah.
say more about this?
Okay. So when I was thinking about my role as a helper, a healer, a clinician, a mental health counselor, there's this constant idea of like, let me swoop in and save you and make you feel great again. And in turn, that will make me feel great because I'm doing the right thing and I'm helping people. But I think that if we don't offer the right type of support, and it's gonna just be like really problematic and harmful even. And to find out what the right type of support is, it takes collaboration, and it takes active listening, and it takes compromise, and it takes willing to step back and be like, okay, maybe this is not exactly what I believe based on my upbringing and my worldview of what is most helpful for me in this situation. But this person is telling me that this is what makes them feel good. This is what is soothing for them. Um, and with that in mind, I'm going to create something so that we can get to a better place. Um, if that makes sense. I think the main example of saviorism is people going to foreign, quote unquote, third world countries and, feeding all these random children that are starving, and feeling like, oh, I did such a good thing. But really, it's like, you're doing that more for your own self than for them. And you're doing it to say that you had the experience, and you get to walk away and go home and have your food and your water, and they are still there living how they live. And it's also in the sense that like it's demeaning too, like, oh, you need to, it's again this idea of like colonial thinking of like, this person's uncivilized, so I need to go in and help them out, and I need to teach them the proper way to live. It's like taking away their pride in their way of living and their culture. So that's how I think about saviorism.
Brenda, thank you. I just wanted real quickly, because this is such an important point. I've heard you mention this before, and I think James had noted this on Tuesday in our gathering we had around E.B. Smith, where he talked about the importance of agency. That concept of saviorism is so embedded in our mythology, in our religious traditions, in our popular media. This hero, someone is going to swoop in and save you. Whether it's, from ancient Hercules to within our Christian theology, our whole mindset or worldview in some ways is based around needing someone to save us. versus that my savior is within me, that I have the agency and the ability to do it. So this is, I know, is a conversation for another time, but I think that's such an important point. And thank you for just noting that for us.
Sure. Thank you again, everybody, for like really hearing me out a lot. I really appreciate it.
I think Travis has one more final thought for you before we go on. This has been great.
Yeah, can you summarize it there? Summarize it?
Say it again.
Can you summarize your thoughts?
Oh, just like, ooh, psh. I would say overall right now, my goal is to really learn and to spread that learning to others. Not that I am always going to be accurate or correct or that people will agree with me, but that I want to hold space for those types of conversations where we can educate ourselves together. And I'm so passionate about art and how it can be used to like not only heal, but to help you gain confidence, to help you share your truth in a way that is not necessarily verbal. I think that by even just sharing your own artwork, it's like sharing your personal narrative. It's like having others witness that is a very beautiful thing. In terms of also how it can support community, not just individuals. Because by creating art as a community, that can help to build connections, that can help to make the community empowered, because everyone is there witnessing and learning together and creating together. And again, everyone's pulling from this source, this deep source that we all have within us, that we have in common. And by doing that together, it's like it's such a good feeling. Like when we're here together talking and reading and sharing our personal favorite art forms. Like it feels so good when you hang up from, at least when I hang up from this call, you know? So essentially, these topics are things that have been on my mind. There's so much more to say, but I'll leave it at that. That was not a great summary.
That was great, Brenda. Thank you for that. And we want to, as we segue for our closing, we're not going to go through any of the readings, but we do want you to just close us out with the singing bowl and do just a brief meditation with us to bring us back to the center. Following that, we're going to have the invitation to join Triumph by Travis. We'll have the announcements by Nadia, and then we'll let you do the closing prayer right after Wes's closing musical interlude. Thank you, everyone. This has been great.
Is there a particular meditation I'm reading off of, or should I just go for it?
Just go for it. Yes. Yeah. Just do your singing bowl and go for it.
So again, let's take some breaths. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And when I take that first breath, I notice immediately how my body just like relaxes a little bit more. You're welcome to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Take some deep breaths. Notice how your body's feeling after this conversation. Notice how your head and your thoughts are doing. Is your mind racing? Is there more to say and more to ask? Is there anything that you reject that's just stuck there? Either way, notice it, and you don't need to label it as good or bad. It just is. And I invite you to let it go for now. Keep breathing. You can breathe in what you need and let go of what you don't need. Breathe in light and beauty and words and emotions and let them go. And circle back to water and how water came up quite a bit in our conversation, in the music that Wesley played, in the art that I shared. Water is everything. I am so grateful for water. I nourish myself with water. I cleanse myself with water. I thrive off of water. I float and swim in water. I I am born in water and maybe I will die in water. Do a quick body scan and I'll strike the bowl again. Thank you. I think we pass it to
Hi, Travis. Thank you, Brenda, for that.
Invitation to join Tribe. Hear how you become part of our Tribe family. Become a member of Tribe under or start a child group in your community. Email us and request more information. We are forming groups virtually through the country, and you can become a spiritual leader and a spiritual healer in the movement. If you are one part Tribe, you're still family, and we would love to welcome you back home. Email us and let us know would you like to reconnect with your Tribe family, and we will show you how. Your church or faith community can also become a part of our Triumph family as a friend of Triumph and share the life of this community. Email us for more information at triumphlifecenter.com at gmail.com. You can also support our ongoing mission of healing, educating, inspiring, and creating new ways of being community through your financial donation, which are tax deductible at our Cash App, $Triumph 2020, or mail Triumph Church of the New Age, P.O. Box 2157, Newark, New Jersey 07114.
Thank you, Trav.
Tribe Life Center Resource Guide New York City is on Facebook. We have information on general info regarding COVID-19, Census 2020, voting, how to register to vote online, food, financial aid, self-care and entertainment, literature, and importantly, anti-racism resources. We also have a TLC playlist on Spotify, so the songs that are usually played on these meetings can be found there. We are also on YouTube. I'm guessing. No, I'm not guessing. The recordings are on there as well. And please email us at triumphlifecenter@gmail.com if you have questions about any of these resources or need any support that you do not find here. And lastly, to our community, be safe, continue wearing your face coverings, remember to social distance, and let's all work together to have a safe and enjoyable fall.
Also, just to encourage everyone to vote. Voting early has started in New York, at least, and I know here in Massachusetts it has also started. So I encourage you, go for it.
Vote, vote, vote. Go ahead, Wes.
I remember you playing that song, Brenda, so I'm gonna play that. I love the song that you played once, so I'm gonna play it to remember it.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Beautiful.
I have the closing prayer on here that I could just read it
Go
to
ahead. Thank you.
share. All right, let's take one breath. Let us pray. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end war, for we know that you have made the world in a way that people must find their own path to peace within themselves and with their neighbors. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end starvation, for you have already given us the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to root out prejudice, for you have already given us eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end despair, for you have already given us the power to clear away slums and to give hope, if we would only use our power justly. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end disease, for you have already given us great minds with which to search out cures and healing, if we would only use them constructively. Therefore, we pray to you instead, O God, for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of just pray, to become instead of merely to wish. Ashe.
And Ashe. Amen. And so it is. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Be safe, be well. We love you. See you next week, God willing.
Yes. Besitos.